Welcome back to another edition of Culinary Connections Distribution Dialogues, where we dive into all things food distribution, where we recognize there are key stakeholders in the equation: chef, brands, and distributors, and we work together to get food to the table. Today, we have Stephanie Pazzaglia of JJ McDonnell out of Maryland. They're a seafood distributor that works hard to serve their customer in the area. And Stephanie, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. No pun intended on the welcome aboard, but why don't you dive in right away and just kind of give us your background in how you got to where you are?
Sure. Hi, Ian. Thanks so much for having me on today. So my name is Stephanie Pazzaglia, and I lead our business development department at JJ McDonnell. I handle anything from industry and government engagement, outreach and public relations, program management. I handle all of our involvement in our memberships at JJ. Our memberships include anything from Global Tuna Alliance. We're also members of CPACT, National Fisheries Institute, and some others. We also are involved in some of the subcommittees with aquaculture and traceability as subcommittees of CPACT, and then subcommittee of domestic issues for National Fisheries Institute.
That's amazing. So you're pretty bored. I know the time commitment it takes to be a part of that, and I think that speaks very highly of you and the organization to invest time and resources into that. You know, you're not just selling a product, you're actually investing in the community of seafood, and I think that's hugely important. Now, before we got started earlier, we were kind of talking a little bit, and Stephanie has a background in seafood from a standpoint of she grew up in it. Stephanie, why don't you talk a little bit about that? I thought that was a pretty cool thing, and maybe define a little bit more about like what wholesale is and growing up in that side of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a lifelong passion in this industry. My father and my family own a seafood wholesaler and retail store, and I started working for them at a very young age. So I got hands-on experience working in the freezer and, being able to count clams, hands-on with the fish. So a lot of great perspectives from a different angle. So with that hands-on experience, it really ignited a strong passion for the seafood industry, and I wanted it to be around for a long time. So I eventually got my degree in marine biology from Stockton University. After graduating from Stockton, I did work in their research lab as a shellfish technician. We worked on oyster restoration projects. And then I worked for New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Bureau of Shell Fisheries. So I had the opportunity to work on some commercial boats with involvement in stock assessments, also spent some time in the lab. And then I made my way to JJ McDonnell in 2016. In 2017, I took on the role for business development. And I wear several hats now.
Oh, I know how that is working for a family business. You know, I tell people often, within a family business, there is no red tape, more just duct tape, right? Like you're just trying to figure things out as you go and you're growing and trying to figure out all these new things. But that's, I think, the fun part of it, right? Is that you get to be a part of a growing organization. Growing up, having such a seafood rich family, do you remember cooking with your family? Like, was seafood like really big deal for you guys to eat?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm of Italian descent, so we have a lot of seafood in our in our kitchens at home. I personally am not a chef or a cook. That's my mom and my sister are very, very, very good in the kitchen, and I'm more on the cleanup crew. And I'll prepare your fish for you, but I'll shuck you oysters. I'll cut it for you, whatever you need done. But they handle the cooking for sure. But yeah, growing up, my mom had always a table full of seafood in all different applications. We grew up around Christmas time was always the Feast of the Seven Fishes. And my dad's place now is currently still, really celebrates the Feast of the Seven Fishes. So it's generational and also very cultural.
And your family's still in the Baltimore area, is that right?
No, so my family actually lives in Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Oh, okay.
but
Wow.
JJ is located in Elkridge, Maryland.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Now, you've worked in the shellfish category for some time and studying marine biology. For those that aren't as aware, how important is the shellfish community to our waters?
Sure. Well, shellfish is extremely important. Not only are oysters and clams filter feeders, but they also provide a lot of structure for different ecosystems within the bay and estuaries, different rivers. So they're very important for fish nurseries and, making sure that other species are able to continue to survive.
With your involvement in all of the organizations that you have or that you're a part of, your education that you've put in, you have a unique approach, perspective, but does that carry over with the entire organization? Does everybody at JJ really have a passion for it? There's a lot of companies that you have initiatives that are there, but it doesn't really bleed into maybe the whole organization. Is sustainability and really nurturing the fisheries an important part of JJ's ethos?
That's a great question. I truly believe that our culture at JJ is very positive. We have a very unique culture where it's really led by our owner, George McManus. George McManus himself is a very seasoned leader. He has been in the industry his whole life as well. He started at a young age, and I love to share his story as well. But before I get into that, I can just kind of talk about the passion that our team has at JJ. Anything from the buyers being passionate about connecting with independent boats and sourcing from waters that they go visit with their families, to also having a sales team that is extremely driven by the water. I mean, they love fishing, they love the ocean, they love getting out, they love talking about all these different species that we bring in. And then our warehouse. I mean, all the folks that work in the warehouse are always excited to see all the different fish that we bring in. We bring in hundreds of different species. Every day you're seeing all these beautiful colorful fish coming from all different parts of the world. But then we also have these great local fish coming in. So I would say that passion really expands throughout the whole company, and our involvement in the different memberships as well as our community is really driven by our leadership. So I mentioned before that we are members of CPACT. I'm an active member of CPACT. I sit on the board. And we do share that information back with our team for National Fisheries Institute. I also am on the board of directors for that. And then we also connect with the state. So currently I'm the chair of the commissioners for the state of Maryland Seafood Advisory Commission. And that indirectly impacts everyone at JJ. So that passion really does get back to our sales team. We try to provide as much education to not only our team, but also our customers, to really make sure they can connect with our impact in our involvement in the industry.
I think it's a critical part when you are a chef, restaurateur, food service operator, and you're selecting your vendors of choice, really aligning yourselves with passionate people that go beyond just selling a box of product to you, right? When you walk in, you start to geek out on clams,
Yeah.
mussels, or whatever, right? There's a natural connection that happens, and it helps establish credibility where you're really not a salesperson, you're truly a partner to that. And it's
Absolutely.
cool
And
that
that's how you earn a seat at the table too. So we always talk to our sales teams about approaching our sales as consultative sales rather than transactional sales. So with that being said, how do we make our sales team experts in their category? JJ McDonnell, we only sell seafood, so we can all be experts in seafood. Now, being an expert, I've been in this industry my whole life and all these different aspects, and I still learn every single day. So providing as much education and exposing our sales team to as much seafood as we possibly can so they can feel confident in explaining and storytelling to our customers. It's really important.
What else is that kind of like, magic touch or that difference, right? Again, um, when you are a customer in the food service space, you have a ton of options. And I don't know if your area is this way, but if you're in the booze business, right? If you sell liquor or wine in the state of Colorado or the state of Tennessee, only one distributor can hold the keys to that brand. Within seafood and produce and meat, it's not that way. Exclusivity is very, very, it just doesn't happen that much anymore. And so typically what we see is people find value in a few things: your delivery days, your cutoff time, your order minimums, maybe product diversity. And then, you get so many people undercutting you, right? Like my salmon is, cheaper, 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 right? And that can be a tactic. What's a successful way? Is it just conveying that passion, the commitment to the industry?
Yeah, so this one's a little tangled. So I would say where we're located in Maryland is an extremely competitive location. Very, very competitive. We have a lot of seafood wholesalers that are located near us. Everyone talks about seafood, everyone talks about crab and oysters. We are in the Chesapeake Bay. But to separate ourselves out, I would say that we lead not only with our education and our involvement in the industry, but also our food safety. So we are a BRC certified facility. So that is a third party food safety audit. We also, can provide our customers with as much as a touch on service as we possibly can. We try to accommodate the best we can with delivery windows and meeting what those products are that they're looking for and providing education and more of a story on that. However, being in such a competitive market, it can be difficult when trying to figure out if our customers are being led by price or if they would like to hear more on that story. So it really, I think, comes down to the customer. And what their overall goals are. If the customer is just a price sheet shopper, maybe we're not the vendor for them. But if a customer is interested in interested in the quality and the service and wanting to know exactly where their seafood's coming from and feeling good about it, then yes, we are the vendor for you.
you know Thinking about the area that you're in, and we just went through you guys just went through a tragedy in the area of the bridge collapsing. How has that impacted, either accessing product, accessing customers, or generally, that commitment to the fisheries, right? Like it's affecting the waterway. Is that something that came up like immediately in that next meeting that you guys came in to work?
I would say it was an absolute tragedy. First of all, yes, it was awful, and it's going to be a long time to rebuild. But on our end, it's very low impacts, fortunately. So even with some of the carrier ships and different things coming into port, I would say we normally don't receive shipments that way. So it really was very low impact, even for a lot of our delivery routes. There are other ways to get around those areas.
Got it. Now, one topic that is something I think relevant in a lot of industries, and it's a challenge that we're overcoming. And I've got a very powerful voice in my household of my wife, and raising a young daughter. And I just did a podcast with two very influential females and in the industry about how it's been overcoming obstacles, um, being a female in the industry. How have you found ways to overcome, because it has been such a male dominated industry? If you go to Cena, it's kind of a joke that you see a lot of blue suits, right? And there is a ton of men there. And it's been really great to see, more and more females get involved in the industry and become leaders in the industry, not just in the industry, but actually holding leadership positions. How have you navigated that?
Honestly, my passion and dedication got me to where I am today. I would say I don't look at it as a challenge. I look at it as an opportunity. Growing up, I was the only girl when I was working for my dad as well, and that didn't stop me then. And most of the time in my adult life, I've been, one of the only females, but again, it's not a challenge, it's an opportunity. And maybe there just hasn't been a lot of females, maybe there hasn't been a lot of interest. I look at other industries the same way. You can look at, I'm sure you can pinpoint, a different industry and count how many females might show up at their conferences as well. It really stems from, passion and your devotion to whatever role you want to play in an organization. But I will say the opportunity side of it, yes, there might be a lot of blue suits, but I stand out because I'm a blonde female. So you'll always be able to find me. So opportunity. But I don't see it as a challenge. I think that's the most simple I can possibly put it. If you want something, work hard, good things will happen.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think if, regardless of where you work or what you do, the age that you're doing it, you could be restarting. It's just learn, be passionate, and put in the work, and you'll find yourself in a position to lead, to create, to add value. But I think if you put those deposits in, right, if you read and you contribute, and I've never really thought of it any other way. But it's something that seems to come up, and again, just generally speaking, the food service distribution is one that you kind of find yourself in. Yes, there's universities that do supply chain, but it's not like a focus on food service distribution. And then the spider webs of what that actually means is not something that you just like. You're in high school and you're like, man, one day I want to work for a food distributor. Like, it just isn't something that comes up. And once you're in, it's like, oh man, there's a whole world of things here that you could do. And I'm sure there's probably several people that are like, former chefs at JJ. Is there?
Yeah, we have a good handful. So it's funny you bring up that. So, um, just to kind of go back to what a comment you just made. So, yeah, like growing up, not everybody within the seafood industry thinks in their heads, well, I'm going to go and become a marine biologist because I want to be in the seafood industry. Some people may go for marketing. Some people may go for finance. Some people may go for, I don't know, logistics, but they land a job in the seafood industry. At JJ, we actually have a really, really strong amount of females at JJ. And they work in all different departments. We have female QA/QC manager. We have females in transportation. We have females in our admin office. We have female buyers. We have a lot of female salespeople. So it's really diverse in that sense, and definitely a level playing field, if you will. But the point of what I'm trying to make is that not everybody always has the dream like I did or the passion like I did at such a young age. You can end up in the seafood industry from all different angles without that seafood background.
Yeah, one of the themes that has been running through the podcast series, I suppose. When I talk to, because most of the people I talk to are either the owner of the company or it's a sales leader in the distribution company, is really how do you motivate or sharpen or, kind of usher along that sales professional, right? That is in the industry to become the best version of themselves. And not everybody wants to be you know, the go-getter. Like, that's just the truth, right?
Hmm.
And so how can you, um, or what are those qualities that you look for when, kind of cultivating and fostering like they have it, right? Like, when that new person starts, they're like, there's something there. Do you notice the same thing?
Yeah, I would say, well, you need hunters. In sales, you definitely need people hunting for different targets, whether it's within food service or retail. You constantly need our sales team going out and finding and landing those new partnerships. And then you also need sales folks with really good maintaining and managing skills to make sure that whatever customer they are currently managing, is happy. They're getting the full service that they need. They're getting the education that they need or want. They're getting that engagement that they're asking for. So you definitely need both a maintainer and a hunter. We have a really great mix at JJ. Our team is really highly educated. And what keeps them, I think, excited is fish are interesting. I mean, like I mentioned before, we have hundreds of different species coming in, and we can 9 out of 10 times tell you what fishing vessel that fish came from, or what farm that fish came from, or oyster came from, and then tell you a little bit more about that story, which makes our sales team more engaged and more likely to story tell to our customers and give them those little bits of information. Our customers love being able to hear, hey, I don't know, this tuna just landed out of Ocean City, Maryland, and now it came from fishing vessel, whatever, from Captain whoever, and now I can put it on my menu and list some of that sourcing information. How exciting is that? It is just so cool to be able to inherently connect with your seafood and then be able to share that story with their customers in the restaurant. So that's something that I think really keeps our sales team excited and being able to continue to be motivated to talk about seafood.
A couple of follow-up questions for that would be, how is technology kind of impacting the way that you guys storytell, the way that help customers, that you're tagging, right? That you're able to track. Have you seen that change in the time period that you've been at JJ? And is tech something that is often talked about within, the four walls?
So for the seafood industry in general, I would say we're a little behind. We've definitely been a little bit behind on the times. I would say the right now you're seeing a lot of order apps coming out, where chefs are able to place their orders through an app or online. That's something coming about within the seafood industry. I would say another kind of tech would be traceability. So we work with a company called Whole Chain on sorting through our traceability. In 2026, the new FSMA regulations will be passed where seafood traceability will be mandatory throughout the supply chain. And having these traceability platforms will make it much more organized and helpful for us to manage and maintain that data. So I would say that's the two, areas that I would see innovative in the past couple of years. And then, aside from data systems that we hold in house for inventory purposes. But there's a variety of different tech, from, understanding where our drivers are on the road and, having more efficient routes to be able to travel. There's a lot of different tech out there for warehouse management and transportation and all.
you know, for every distribution company, when you think about marketing used to be, maybe you have a food show once a year, maybe. It's your trucks on the road, your invoices, and it could be the clipboard that you give someone that has an order guide to it, and that was kind of the extent of it. Marketing has changed, right? The expectations for within aquaculture, the brands that you partner with, and that's a kind of a wide variety. But also you yourself, as the distribution company, bringing your company to life and sharing those stories of drivers, cutters, the personality of the company, the great fish, right? We just landed this beautiful tuna and we have four available, right? Social media has given us a great outlet for that. Is that something that you see like chefs talking about? Is that an important feature within the organization that, is definitely picking up steam, or is it just, it's kind of an afterthought?
I think marketing is extremely important. I think marketing is important because most people eat with their eyes. So, being able to see a beautiful piece of tuna or, a beautiful fish straight off the farm or some oysters that were just harvested really is appealing to not only our chefs, but to their customers. So this is something that I truly believe is going to continue to develop and really take off with the seafood industry, and more, how inquisitive more and more people are. So the more they can learn about where their seafood's coming from, the more they're likely to order it on the menu or continue to order it. Something that they may have been a little questionable about, it might be able to light a fire underneath them to order it again or try something new now that they've learned a little bit more about it. So connecting customers, whether they're our customers or our customers' customers, with the source, I think the better. Our marketing department at JJ is phenomenal. One of our marketing associates is a fantastic with her camera, and she's really great at taking pictures to entice a more of a conversation with our sales team.
I work with a lot of brands across, produce, meat, seafood, you name it. And as I kind of said in the intro, my belief in food service is there's really three main stakeholders. You've got your distributor, your chef, and your brand. And they all have to work together, right? You have to have a chef to buy the product. You have to distributor to use the product or to deliver the product. And you have to have a brand, farm, et cetera, to get the product to you. And without one, it's really difficult for the ecosystem to work. And one of the constant things that I talk to brands about, or farms, artisans, is your involvement with your distributor partner, right? You have to invest in them. You have to be proactive. Once you get into a distributor, your work is not done. For you, what have you seen work for brands to be successful in working with you and the sales team?
Sure. So I would say when you speak on brands, that's going to be something that's farmed.
Correct.
So really at JJ, we work with wild and farmed. When I'm talking about the sourcing information and the fishing vessel and the captain information, that's going to come from the wild side. I would say brand affiliation. And usually something that would have a team behind them is going to come from a farm. So usually if you want to promote, a farm or a brand, there's usually going to be some kind of logo recognition, or website that our customers can visit. Also, there's usually going to be some kind of presentation that they're going to come and present to our sales team, and share, their story with our team and get them excited about it. And, in turn, get our customers excited about it. They may even come out and do a couple of days on the road with our team and go visit customers and talk about their product. And I think that's a big part of landing something on the menu. There's a lot of positives to farm fish, and it's great that there's a lot of that misconception is starting to move out. For years and years and years, farmed fish in general, quote unquote, can tend to have a negative perception in the marketplace. And I'm really happy to see that that's starting to shift. And I'm hoping that it's starting to shift because usually when seafood is on the front page of a newspaper, it's normally not a good story. It tends to be something negative, and we really do need more positive press out there on seafood, and really promoting our farms and letting the folks know, whether they're a client or a restaurant goer or a restaurant, that farms are a great choice to select. And I think that goes a long way when you start connecting with brands and understanding all of the time and money and energy that go into possibly even a certification. So a lot of farms these days take on an ASC or BAP certification to really help them land placements in large retail stores or even large restaurant chains.
Oh man, I would agree. I mean, I think we've got to do a better job of educating the general population on seafood. You know, whether you like wild or farm, that's up to you, but you need to start eating more seafood. I was at the national or the annual meat conference in Nashville maybe a month ago, and the average American eats about 66 pounds of ground beef per year. And when you compare that to like any type of a seafood product, it's like significantly less. And I have to tell people, you know, when was the last time you went to a cookout at a friend's house and they were grilling grouper, right? Like it just is
Yeah.
not. Maybe along the East Coast or any of your coastlines, there's more of a, you know, you grew up eating clams. To your point, you cleaned a bunch of them, and in Maryland, like crab boils are totally normal. And but if you go to Middle America, it's really not very common to eat, and so we've got to educate, you know, the kids about the importance of eating seafood. And again, the wild versus farm, that's a totally different subject, right? Like, but we got to get people eating more seafood. um, how is that split for you when it comes to retail food service? Are you guys kind of a 50-50, or is it top heavy food service?
Are you speaking on farmed and wild?
No, just in general in your book of business.
Oh, so I would say we're a little heavy on the retail side right now. But food service has always been a really important part of our business. And we're constantly making sure that we are pretty leveled out on that sense. But I would say retail, food service, and some wholesale are our three main categories.
Yeah,
But
that
going back to the farmed a little bit, I would just like to add that you mentioned meat. So another thing that comes to mind is that, when folks are eating chicken and beef, they never really realize that it's farmed. So when we get questions like, "Oh, I don't eat any farmed seafood," I am really stumped, and I'll try to make them
great
understand that
point.
everything else that they eat is farmed. To be honest with you, seafood is one of the last things that is really hunted in the wild to bring back to your plate. So really anything from your spices, I mean, even to, to your
what a
spices, to your
what a great
poultry, to
point.
your beef, everything is farmed. Your vegetables, your produce, everything is farmed. So it's really silly that we have this negative conception of how, we're raising fish. Aquaculture has come a long way from when it first started, and we need aquaculture. We need fish farms to be able to uphold the demand for seafood, or we won't have enough.
Gosh, I mean, that's like a marketing spin right there for the industry
Yeah.
is painting that picture. I actually talked to Joe Lasprogata of Samuels and Son, and he made the same comment of, we don't go and like wild catch a cow, right? Like it
Yeah.
just, I mean, yes, people they go and do these like, oh, I bought half a cow, or but you're not wild catching that. And um,
It's still farmed. It's still a
yeah,
farmed
right.
cow.
And when you think about the volatility in the seafood space, sometimes there's no like mahi farm, right? It's a wild caught species, and it can be in South America, different parts of the world, and there's no guarantee that that fisherman is going to go catch a certain amount, right? And which is also why, as a seafood distributor, you're sourcing from several different brokers or wholesalers, because one person may only have 200 pounds and the other person may have got 400 pounds. And anytime when we talk to chefs, and what do you mean you don't have any? Well, it could be weather conditions, or just that time of year. There is this product is wild caught, and there's no guarantee it's going to be available. And I think as a society, we have gotten so used to on demand everything, right? And it just isn't realistic, and we've got to do a better job of being more realistic in availability and pricing, seasonality, in order to be fair stewards to our farmers, or anyone that's in the food system, growing, catching, creating the food that we eat.
Oh, 100%. We now live in an instant society. Our society wants everything now and all the time. Not even a half a century ago, you wouldn't be able to get oranges all year, or you wouldn't be able to get maybe different vegetables all year. And that's the same thing, really, that we're seeing with our wild fisheries. We have to, follow the fish, and Mother Nature is a beast. I mean, Mother Nature, you have high wind, you have strong storms, you have poor weather, temperature, and all these different variables can definitely fluctuate your availability as well as your price. So on the wild side of things, and it's really important to understand that. And we really do a great job at connecting with so many independent boats along the East Coast and into the Gulf. We work with a lot of offloaders. And then we also work with, folks in South and Central America as well. And, depending on what's available, that is what we're pulling in. I will say that our buying team does a fantastic job of really understanding where it is that they're buying the fish from and sourcing the fish from, in a sense of an environmental and an ethical as well as a management point of view. So we focus on responsible sourcing. We do try to source as much domestic product as we can. Like I said, we really work with the East Coast fishermen as much as we can. But I'm not sure if you're aware, but in the U.S. right now, quota allocation is something of a hot topic, and availability of the commercial quota versus the recreational quota is, constantly being, I would say, fought over. So having that availability, we're hoping that that commercial quota continues to be available for us.
All those things go into the complications of pricing in seafood. There's really no cookie cutter approach, and you can get deliveries multiple times a week that all could have different pricing delivered into you. You've got freight involvement, and it's interesting to see if you work with any kind of multi-unit national chains, right? They want kind of fixed pricing, and well, why can I get it for this price in this part of the world, and from you it's this price? Well, again, freight goes into it, lot cost goes into it. How do you guys kind of approach, building a really good relationship with a customer that is price conscious?
Sure, that's a great question. So we have a lot of wonderful partners. Our customers are great with us, and we really lead through transparency and building that trust and getting to know exactly what it is that our customers are looking for. So if our customers are, if one particular customer is looking for something that's price point driven, we can 100% work with them and work tight on that price and finding the right product for them. But it's really understanding what their ultimate goal is. It's if it's certifications and it's location of harvest, then that's our angle, and that's what we're going to help them with and be that guiding light for them. When it comes down to price, that's always going to be a conversation of if it's certified, what kind of spec it is, how frequently they need it, and what kind of volume they're going to need. So those are all big questions when it comes into it. To be completely honest with you, Ian, if you told me, Steph, I need a fish and I need to be at the price point $3 a pound, and I don't care how we get there. Well, I can produce that for you. So it's really about understanding what the customer is looking for. There's a lot of adulterations out there that can help you get to those price points. But if you're looking for a clean product, there might be some ways to get there as well. And it could just simply come down from spec.
It is a complicated topic that there is no one clean answer to.
Yeah.
And I think that can frustrate a lot of maybe CFOs at a restaurant level, or, the procurement side of it. But that's the truth. There's not an easy way, but it starts with how much volume, and I think as a distributor too, is Are you on term, COD? How quick do you pay? How many delivery days do you expect? Where are you situated in the landscape of the city? And all those things go into, your ability to be a good partner to them and have that mutual relationship. With your proximity to the ocean, regionality again is so uh, interesting to see in the way that we consume seafood or just generally food. What are some like really popular seafood species that like you guys just sell a ton of? I know in the Midwest you'll sell walleye, in Texas it's going to be redfish, and Louisiana is probably going to be red snapper. But like, what are some really popular things for you guys?
So in the Maryland area, I would say blue crab is going to be, a very popular, a very popular item in all different ways, whether it's hard crab or whether it's picked crab meat. But crab meat in general is very popular for us. Striped bass is very popular for the folks in this area. I would also say something that we talk about a lot is blue catfish. I wouldn't say it's priority in right now in our restaurants, but it's something that the state is really pushing, and that's a program that we've been leaders of for over 10 years now, and that's coming from the Chesapeake Bay. So I would say a variety of different items that are local. It's a really big snow crab area as well. So there's a lot of depending on where you're at in the country, seafood is really motivated by demographics. Baltimore is a really big brown shrimp area. Like Gulf brown shrimp is very popular in Baltimore, but then you go to DC, and I would say a white peeled and deveined shrimp is going to be more popular. So it really depends on where you're at, even in the proximity of just DC and Baltimore, which are not even 15 minutes apart from one another. It's going to change what that preparation or the flavor profile is going to be.
That's awesome. You talked a little bit earlier about the FISMAC coming up. Are there any other trends that you're seeing consistent or something that you're keeping an eye on that is going to have implications in the way that we do business, we get food to the table?
I would say something that continues to come up is probably the social aspect of it, the social responsibility aspect of the seafood industry. Some articles have been stemming from a recent article, I would say a report from Ocean Outlaw, kind of exposing some of the forced labor operations in various countries. I do think this is going to be something that a lot of more retailers and possibly even food service organizations are going to be looking at, so they don't end up on that report anywhere. Like I mentioned, we do a really great job of really mitigating our risk in that aspect and understanding our supply chain and working as close as we can with whether it's a boat or a farm to learn as much as we possibly can about them. So, and I would say like the majority of the companies within CPAC, this is something that we have been all talking about and have been on the forefront of for, a few years now.
There's a delicate dance between sales and procurement. Sales wants to sell everything, and then procurement obviously has things and initiatives that they have to adhere to, and nobody wants to take a dump on product. How have you seen the relationship work well within procurement and sales?
Oh, yes. So this is you hit the nail on the head right there. It's definitely a funny dance how it goes. Our teams really do work really well together, and the communication is there. Communication is key. We have a wonderful market report that goes out every Thursday. Our buying team, they all represent different categories of what they buy within the company, and they publish a wonderful market report that not only goes to our sales team but also our customers, so they can really stay on top of the market and understand what is to come. If pricing is going to be, if they can foresee it going up, if they can foresee it going down, availability challenges, weather challenges, potential quota cuts, whatever that may be, they're going to lay it out in this market report. And also our teams are constantly communicating. So and we encourage it. If it's too quiet, it's never good. We want everyone talking. We want to hear the feedback from the customers. The buyers want to hear the feedback from the customers, and the sales folks want to hear the feedback from the buying team. So they need to hear what's going on the water, and then we also need to hear what's going on in the restaurant. And having that communication back and forth is very much so key.
What is the wildest story you have in serving a customer? Like, what's the craziest thing that you guys have done, to come through for the customer?
Mm. Um, I would say probably our pivoting during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, logistics overall really were a struggle for a lot of people. And for one of our very very long term partners, we actually help them with delivering poultry. So we were just offering our services to help them move some of their product. And I think that says a lot about who we are as a partner to them and our partnership with them, and our willingness to be able to, help them even outside the scope of seafood. We were actually, I think it was a nice way to show our loyalty.
That's awesome. I mean, you got to be a good partner, and we all go through great lengths on both ends. As a customer, as I mean, you're a customer to somebody along the way, but
Mm-hmm.
to be a good steward of business, you flexibility is key, and there's going to be a time where you've got to be flexible and try to figure out how to say yes, but right, and figure out what the but is, and that also goes miles in the way that you're perceived in the market for not being so rigid. And it can be a little bit easier when you are an independent distributor as opposed to a larger company. As we wrap up, and thank you for the time and insights, is what are you excited for, here in the next, we're not quite halfway through 2024, but 2030 is not going to be that far. I mean, it sounds far away, but it goes by quickly. And I tell people, look, the iPhone was I remember buying the first iPhone May of 2007, going to the pool to see my friends, and like kind of like, look at this thing, right? Like, you can zoom in on the map. And now the device really impacts our lives far beyond what we ever thought possible, right? We thought it was just going to be kind of this cool little thing. And for a lot of people who were reluctant because they had a BlackBerry, I don't need to get a phone with my camera on it or an iPod with it right now. Um, it is a way of our life. But what are you looking ahead to? What excites you?
So the future is exciting as it is scary, I think. There's a lot of things to look forward to in the future, like I said, of being, getting consumers excited about seafood. How do we earn more of a share on the menu for seafood? How do we talk and do better storytelling and really be able to connect folks, whether it's with QR codes or providing more sourcing information, or the traceability aspect of it. Some concerns I have are with the FSMA coming and a lot more data that we're having to convey, and a lot more restrictions, not losing those small independent boats, or not losing those small mom and pop shops that we currently have. Data and technology are very tough for small operations. They're expensive. They're very expensive, and for older people, it might be harder to use or navigate. That's another thing I have a concern about the industry is there's not as much youth as I'd like to see. I've done talks at high schools actually to entice more people to be in to want to be in the seafood industry, whether they'd like to go and do be a waterman or an oyster farmer, or work in the industry as a cutter, or somehow be involved in the industry. We have an older generation right now, and commercial fishermen, they're not getting any younger. So some of my concerns for the future is how do we get some new blood into the industry, some younger generations excited about it. But on the other side of that coin, it is a tough industry to be in. Being a commercial waterman is not fun. It can be really tough. I mean, you don't know what your paycheck is going to look like day to day. But without them, what would we do for all of that great wild seafood we just spent an hour talking about? So it's really important that we have more young commercial fishermen, more watermen here in the Bay, more, fish farmers. And I would like to see more young people within this industry.
That is a very thorough, thoughtful answer, and this conversation has been one of my favorite that I've had. So, Stephanie, thank you for joining us. For those that want to do a little bit more research, go to jjmcdonnell.com. You can find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and I'm sure if you shot Stephanie a message, she'd probably respond. And you've got a lengthy career ahead of you. Excited for what the future holds for you. Thanks for being a guest on our podcast and sharing your journey perspective on the industry. It's helpful for somebody in, Tacoma, Washington that may not have any experience in seafood to learn this side of the business. So thank you again for joining us. And we hope you have a great rest of the year and hope to bump into you again soon.
Thank you, Ian, and thanks for having me.